He also recording as well. So
okay, that would be great. Yeah, so I'm not gonna worry about it.
all right. What I'll do is I'll just kind of kick things off. So what we're doing this time for the community call is we're doing things a little differently, just trying to be a little more structured. So I'll be kind of hosting us through this and just going over. So we'll be going over the 3D release. Super exciting. Any sort of like community questions that have been asked, any sort of like questions that are coming in the chat. And then we'll be also just going over some other things at the end. So let's start with Brandon. Is there any little new updates or any little exciting things going on at Gangbusters at the moment that everyone should hear about?
So I think the most exciting thing is the 3D update. That's what we're going to discuss in a little bit. We are also in terms of on the business side of things, and this might be a bit boring, but we are talking to a few other potential investors and some things in the pipeline early next year in terms of the collectible cars that we've been working on. So we are finalizing the design around how that's going to be used, how we're going to release them, and how that's going to connect back into BattleTabs. So I think that's exciting. We're also talking to potentially collaborating with various guilds and organizations that might be interested in running tournaments. So I know you guys know that we did the Fractal partnership Fractal tournaments, and they were sponsoring tournaments, and I think few people have gotten some prizes through that. So we're hoping to do more things like that. And there was a thing that I wanted to mention, and then and we're also
sorry, Karen.
And one final thing, we're also looking to get BattleTabs into more places where people can find it. So potentially more web gaming partnerships, web gaming portals, where we're going to put BattleTabs onto those platforms. So hopefully that would help us get more and more players through the door and discovering this wonderful community that we.
Cool. Thanks for that, Brandon.
You are roboting a little bit, Brandon, as usual. But I mean, it wouldn't be a Brandon stream if it was intelligible.
That's very on brand. So
how many years have I been saying, feed the hamster in your router or something? But still, that hamster just goes hungry every single time.
Sorry about that.
I think we got it.
All right, so moving on to the incredibly exciting news as of this morning is the 3D release. So what I'll do is first, let's throw back to Brandon. And how did the decision to move to 3D come about? I know it's been a discussion point for quite some time.
So we actually looked into going 3D back in, I want to say 2020. Is that right? I think it was 2020. When we were working on was it ships and fleets update? I think back then we were looking at 3D for a little bit. Am I still roboting?
A little bit.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So yeah. So we looked at that, and I think that the reason why we always wanted to look at 3D was a few things. One, it always took a long time for us to push out a new ship. On the art side of things, there's a lot of slicing up the ships. There's a lot of arranging all the different pieces. So even though on the screen it looks like one thing, behind the scenes there's multiple different little things that we have to put together on the board, and it just takes a long time, and it's quite tricky to do. I remember when we had the electric eel, which has all sort of shapes, different tiles, and making that work with the crab, that took a long time to do because it's just the way the spike works. So we wanted, after the first season, we wanted to find a way for us to be able to get new content into the game much faster. So that's why we decided that 3D angle is a much better way to set it up. And also, because we're going mobile, we want more flexibility in terms of how we can set up the game by moving the camera around in 3D, which will just make life a lot easier. And then finally, because we've always had this idea of at some point working with the community to create new kind of experiences, I think having a 3D setup makes life easier in that we can potentially work with you to create maybe something sort of on the side using some of the same assets that we're currently creating. So, you know, 3D assets is just a lot more flexible in that regard. So I think those are some of the main reasons why we've decided to move into 3D.
Cool. And I guess, as 3D, another dimension, it becomes like another dimension of challenges, which is something that I know Sophie has been facing, getting all the ships that were originally prepared for a 2D, getting ready to be viewed in like a 3D engine. Sophie, I was wondering if you could just go through briefly some of the challenges and maybe share your screen so we could see some of the cool things you've been doing.
I shall.
You might need to just speak up a little, Sophie.
Oh, can people hear me?
Very quiet.
Yeah.
Very quiet. I'm not sure how to turn myself up.
I'm sure if you yell, we'll be okay.
People just turn me up to max, and then when anyone else talks, you'll be deafened. All right, so
BPF actually asked a question there, Jim. I'm not sure if you saw it about mobile.
No, I didn't.
Mobile versus website extension. So to answer the question there, when the game becomes mobile, will there still be available on website extension? Will everyone have to migrate to mobile? Will there be less features on the web? Currently, we are aiming to have complete feature parity between the two. So we're working hard to make the UI work both on desktop and mobile. As I'm sure you can imagine, that is a hard task. But Jeff is the one that's taken it on, so you've got him to thank for that efforts, mainly.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting once it comes to mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Sophie.
Does anyone have any experience with Blender?
Infinity? Is that Infinity?
Me.
A bit.
Well, Blender is what I've been using to transition the ships, and while the ships were originally made, they were made in 3D. They were rendered out to be used in 2D, meaning, like Brandon said, they were separated out, but it also meant that there were different things that were important. So, like, bringing those things directly into 3D would have destroyed performance of the game, and things needed to be changed. So, can anyone see my screen here? I just decided to edit this bit in over what I was talking about in the call, since I was incredibly quiet and the recording didn't really get very good look at what I was trying to share with you guys. So I'm just going to chuck this bit into that video. So what I was trying to talk about was what it took in like what I did to make BattleTabs 3D from 2D. So there were already 2D or 3D ships from the 2D version, but for 3D, in order to get them to render in the scene, I had to do some optimizations and some tweaks. So we have here, this is kind of what the ships were, well, what Catamaran was like in the original files that Alan made. So what I did was I went in and I reduced the poly count. So if you look up here in the corner, we've got triangles at almost 100,000. That impacts performance and also makes things more difficult to tweak and change on my end. And then also we have lots and lots of different little meshes here for each different thing that animates. Like you can see this guy here, as I drag along the timeline, he's moving, and that's how he animates separately to everyone else. And then like this guy's arms, that's how they animate. So I went in and I added bones. So if I do this in pose mode, you can see all the bones. There is quite a lot. And so each one of those controls a specific part of the overall mesh. And when I combined it, and that means we've got a single mesh and each different bone is animating in its own different way. And as you can see here, there is much fewer triangles. Things look slightly less detailed, but it renders better in 3D. And then also, it combined all the animations into one. So we've got all these different guys. Each time he's hurt, compared to all these different meshes that were for all the different damage states. Because Catamaran had 9, so undamaged, and then each square that you hit. So yeah, it took a little bit of time, but now it's all in game, and I hope you guys enjoy. All right, I'll give you back to the Discord call.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sophie. I don't think it's hard to realize how much work goes into it. Like, I think initially people might have just thought, well, we've already got the ship in 3D, we just kind of plonk it there. But yeah, not really the case.
Well, that's what we did.
And
we actually did do that to begin with.
Oh yeah, that's at the start.
Sophie was able to whip through the ships very quickly to begin with, like just doing some minor simplification of the geometry. But then we realized we've got a lot of draw calls, and the draw calls are very expensive. So we had to do like another big pass, which is pass that took the longest. But yeah, there's a lot of different damage states. For example, the Catamaran's got 7 damage states, one for each cell.
Got 9 total.
Something like that. So yeah, it's a lot of work. But now it's done.
And I remember Sophie showing me the animation had to be combined into one mesh, so you have to like redo all the bones, and then yeah, it's a lot of work. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, so it was quite time consuming, but very fun, and I got to play around with all the beloved ships that you guys have been playing with for quite some time.
TS total misplay. I think is VirusBot. Is he? Is it VirusBot? Anyway.
That's VirusBot.
Wait, is all this new 3D? No, we had damage levels before. So we had them before. So they were there before. We just now had to sort of merge them together into the same mesh and then use bones to animate them. Just their standard 3D stuff. But yeah, they weren't designed for that before. They were all designed just to be rendered out from Blender directly into 2D. So making them work directly within the 3D engine, rendering in real-time frame rates is a very different game.
Yeah, how it was originally done was each thing was a separate object, like each character and each like ore of the different bits, and it was a separate object, and they were just animated to like rotate or to move a certain way. And so I had to combine them all together and then use bones. So you have to parent different bits to different bones. It is a bit complicated, but if anyone has any interest in doing 3D stuff, I can go into more detail another time. But yeah.
Cool. I'm sure a lot of people will be definitely on board for that. Mike, would you like to cover on some of the benefits of moving over to 3D that will be both the players will get to experience and us as a team will get to experience?
Certainly. So players, we can do things like, for example, coming up soon, full rotations. So rotating the ship, not just flipping it, changing it to all different directions. Potentially controversial, maybe. We were discussing that just yesterday. Maybe that would change the game in a bad way because it makes this position of the ships harder to guess. But it seems like I lost that argument, so we're doing it. So that's a positive thing. And then also, obviously, rendering things we can do, which is a big thing. So we could do day-night cycle, which is going to be good. We could do like events a lot easier. We can do like filters and shaders and all kinds of things like that. We can do a lot more kind of effects. We can do just heaps more stuff that we can do technically. And obviously, it makes us adding more content quicker and easier. So like skins and things like that, and new ships, which is going to be a big part of our mobile release. So yeah, I think Brandon covered like the main reasons for going to 3D anyway. So I won't recover those, but it just basically unlocks a whole bunch of stuff for us. So the gamble that we took is like, the 2.5, 3 months that it took us to go to 3D is going to have a bigger payout for us on the back end. So in the end.
Cool.
Some
I
of
think
the
the only thing that sorry, Brandon, keep going.
sorry, some of the sort of like earlier screencasts that Mike did look really cool in that we can actually, so the game it's currently an isometric view, but we can actually start playing around with the camera, with field of view, and then the game will have a very completely different feel to it. We're not adding that directly into the game yet, so that's not going to be in the release. But I think at some point that might be pretty cool to be able to let the player like move around the camera if you want to zoom in and take a look at your ships, and focus on different like aspects of the board. It will just be a much better experience.
Yeah, sorry, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I mean that's one of the key things we want to do as well. Because when we're on mobile, making everything fit onto a small screen is going to be tricky. So we're going to have to do some nice camera shenanigans, and obviously that would be easier in 3D than it would be with 2D. So yeah, for sure. I mean, we could do the camera rotation right now. It's not a problem. It's just we wanted for this first release just to make it basically the 3D version look like the 2D version. It just reduces the number of things that we have to change right now, or have to worry about. And then future iterations, we will do more stuff with this now. Yep.
Cool. And I think that we probably should just clarify for going forward. So BattleTabs in 3D is what BattleTabs will be going forward. We won't be having a toggle to allow for like the two states between 2D and 3D. It will, we're going to be using the 3D engine and leveraging it. And just to note that our 3D work is ongoing, and the whole new dimension is very fresh and exciting. And as we continue to work on it, I'm sure we'll be able to make BattleTabs even more beautiful than you ever thought it was before. And just onto that, we're just going to cover some of the community questions that were asked in that Discord thread that Brandon posted earlier. So I think the first, and like anyone just like jump in and go for it. I think the first one is, will low-end Chromebooks still be able to run it? And I think
Yes,
Mike, you've got an answer.
Yeah, well, I've got a low end. This is like I bought this like a couple of years ago, just for testing purposes, like the cheapest Chromebook I could find here in Australia in Office Works, I think it was. And yeah, it runs perfectly fine on that. Also, we recently trying on old mobile phones and stuff, and the game runs at 60 frames a second on the old phones. So there's still a lot more like optimization work to be done. Definitely 100%. But we know where to go with to optimize those sort of things. I think if people are really struggling in general with the frame rate, then let us know. Probably we should get some metrics in the game actually, so we can just work out on as like sample on like average what the frame rate people are experiencing. Actually, I will make a note to look into that. I think.
Hopefully that answers the question. Also, a frame rate slash visual settings toggle, which I think means like changing maybe like shadowing options, or I think we've got the animations toggle, but that was a question that was raised. So are we looking at opening, like having more option toggles for frame rate?
Yeah. Yes, I think definitely we could do that. Usually, though, like changing frame rate settings and stuff tends to be more of like a desktop, like HD gaming sort of thing. You know, you have that sort of thing. In a mobile, you don't tend to change settings. Just you hope that the game adapts to your device. I think maybe there's some sort of middle ground in there. We've already got one setting in there now, which is like turn animations on or off. And from my testing on the couple of devices I got here, that the animations is actually quite. If you're GPU bound, the GPU animations, the animations happen on the GPU. So if you're GPU bound, turning those off had a fairly large impact. So decided to put that in, but I'm not sure whether it is enough for some people or people that are CPU bound. It might not be. It might not be the best setting. Maybe there's more CPU work to be done there.
Oh, and someone has asked BattleTabs law question mark. I'm assuming that's just a very general. Where is BattleTabs law? I know it's something that we really want to focus more on, but yeah, Brandon, do you want to talk a bit on that?
Yeah. I do. So I think law is an important aspect of what we are planning to do next, because our whole thinking is BattleTab is more than just one game, and story narratives is something that helps build the franchise, the IP, the thing, the brand. We don't have any plans finalized in terms of how we are going to do it. We want to have a strong community focus, and we know that a lot of you have written stories, be it for specific ships or for comic style stories, and those are super fun. So we want to find a way to have lore that's sort of maybe official, but also stories that are created by the community, and thinking through how we can connect all those together, perhaps through the collectible cards, or perhaps through a more centralized place where people can share these stories. And there were also ideas around collecting like different booklets kind of thing for the stories. But I think at the end of the day, the stories need to be written first, and we don't have a writer in the team at the moment. So I suppose the short answer is we definitely want to do it. It's more of a resource issue, and just thinking through how we can collaborate with everyone on server and in the larger community So if anyone has any ideas, feel free to share on the suggestions channel, and we'll definitely have a look and try to see if we can come up with a great way of doing this.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm super
just
keen. I'm super bullish on the community taking the lead on the lore. We just need to work. I'd like to be able to work it into the gameplay. So often when you play games, lore is kind of like a secondary thing, and I'm just kind of the person that just clicks through it. Whatever. But it might be nice if it was a really like interesting part of collection in the game. You kind of like get challenges to collect the lore, and it just feels good. But I think we talked about this a lot before anyway. So BPF, asks the same question again. Yes, the mobile and the desktop version will be trying to make them the same BPF. Ask for the third time, and I don't know, my head might explode. BPF is the volume off. Okay, that'll be why.
All right, we've got another question. When will ELO be implemented? Which I assume is referring to the ELO matchmaking algorithm.
Yeah, good question. I think it's super important. I think kind of goes back to that conversation that thread that I started the other day about multiplayer versus single player features. I think it's really important. The question is how important is it compared to other things? Do we do single player first? Do we do tournaments first? Do we do clans first? Do we do ELO first? We have a system of playing battles, and we have a high scores system already. The question is, do we improve those? Are we doing that to satisfy the top 1%, or would it make the game better in general for everybody? I think everything kind of also has to revolve around our main goal is getting to mobile. We need to get to mobile, and we need to get the story right there and get the monetization right, or else we start to survive unless we go out and seek more funding. And we'll also need to do the cards aspect as well. So that's another whole thing we haven't really discussed here, is the Web3 and the cards and the fractal and all that kind of stuff. So to answer the question, ELO, yes, definitely want to do. When, don't know.
I think this is another one that you can field, Mike. When will BattleTabs have a chess mode?
A chess mode? What is a chess mode? Is that a sort of single player puzzle mode type thing?
I think it might just be a chess, so you can play chess against each other.
That would be a perfect community project. Where's Mona when we need him? Do a chess game, Mona.
Sounds great. Yeah. So if anyone wants to lead a chess, BattleTabs chess, feel free to raise and we'll do our best to support the effort. I do like the idea of chess with BattleTabs, because it does feel like a good fit. And we experimented with the chess game before, Mike, a long time ago. We did a browser extension chess.
Yeah, we did.
It was single player only, and it worked. We took it down, but yeah. So I thought about this before. The only tricky thing is our ships are, except for the coracle, they all take up more than one tile. So I'm not exactly sure how that's gonna work on a chessboard. So we'll have to think about that. But it could be fun. So yeah, any game developers in the chat community, feel free to to let us know that you want to take it on.
Brandon sounded off again. Is it? I can hear him.
Yeah, me too. I think also following on from chess mode, another question that was asked was card mode when. I don't know if that's as likely, but there definitely will be card things
What's the card mode?
BattleTabs.
I think like draft mode. I think more modes is definitely something we need to do. Again, like it feels like like draft mode and things like that would work so well in like tournaments or something. It would just like really make tournaments very interesting. The same as the way the Clash Royale did it, where you introduce new game modes via tournaments, so that just really encourages people to play in tournaments. Imagine that being really cool.
Yeah, I think more game modes is always fun. We've talked about draft mode for a while now, and even back when we were just discussing not collectible, ship collections, like custom fleets. I remember we were looking into various different kinds of setup. Back then, it wasn't a mode; it was just maybe this is what we should do with the game. But I think we've got this balance of more game modes versus lower queuing time. So this is from a player's experience perspective. Like the more game modes we have, the longer time you might have to wait. So there needs to be a clever way of handling that. So that's another thing. But the plan is once we're on mobile, and mobile is our priority now. And as you can probably tell, that we haven't been putting a ton of new content into the game because everyone is just working on the mobile port. And once that's out, we're hoping to see a lot more players, and that will give us a lot more opportunities to do different game modes, and we don't have to worry as much about queuing times and all the rest of it.
All right, shall we grab maybe one or two more questions from the chat and then move on? So I think one was, when is the next major update? We just gave you a major update.
Define major, like, yeah.
I think if people are if that's about season 2, I think we're probably away. Season 2 won't come out until after mobile. In the meantime, we'll probably do something interesting, hopefully in the meantime. But in terms of like a season is a ton of work, so I don't think we'll get to that before we finish the mobile.
And also,
I don't think we have a. Go ahead.
Yeah, it also doesn't really monetize currently. We just don't. Doesn't seem the last season didn't monetize amazingly well. Maybe just because we didn't have enough players, or maybe we just didn't push it enough. But that's the other thing. For the amount of work, doing seasons is hard. You need to really have a constant treadmill of stuff, and you need to do it in a very compelling way for it to work.
Yeah, I don't actually have a problem with how it monetizes. I mean, from a relative perspective, because I think because BattleTabs is a web game, the in-app purchase never really worked. And I think this is just a general thing with web games. But we did see good multiples from Battle Pass compared to the monetization before that. So that was good. But again, because it's on the web, it's amazing in terms of in-app purchase.
True.
Are you gonna be on the Solana blockchain? So we are on Solana already in terms of if you connect your Fractal wallet, then you're on Solana. The stuff that you get through that is all on Solana at the moment.
The first Fractal rewards are going to go in fairly soon, hopefully. So from people that won the last tournament, they're getting hats and emotes and things like that, specifically Fractal ones. So that's good. Sophie did the art for that ages ago. Just haven't put it in because we've been focusing on the 3D board. You won 5 Sol. Wow, nice.
Oh, very nice.
So $300. How much is that? I can't remember what it was.
It was.
Something like that.
Yeah.
All right, what we might do is we might just move on, and I'm sure we'll be able to answer some questions a bit later, but just in the interest of time, let us go to just acknowledge some community efforts. Firstly, the pixel art contest that closed not that long ago. And just, yeah, congratulations to the winners voted by the community. So we've got the Magic Mirror by Goldfish 038, the Pirate Thief by Zaki Bake, and the Blunderbuster by Zaki Bake. Very, very cool. And I think, Sophie,
Very good.
you just say how amazing the art was as well.
Yeah, I just want to like acknowledge how awesome all the stuff you guys have made is, and yeah, just seeing everyone's art, it's so great. It's so great that this is a community that shares so much, and your art is super cool, and it's very inspiring. And now I want to make pixel art too.
Cool. And we always have our ears open for other like fan creation competitions and ideas. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you about what you liked and what you might like to do. So something that we want to start doing as well is a community shout out, where each of us just shouts out something that we saw in the Discord community that we thought was particularly cool. So I think Brandon, you've got one about a little slug boy.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the thing so I can post it. I don't know where it is now. But basically, I think on the BattleTabs channel, Mike had shared an update with the new animation for the slug, and someone commented that the slug looked like it was stretching. The stomach was stretching, like the animation looked a bit odd. And then everyone sort of chimed in on that and said, "Oh no, it looks fine. It looks stretched." And then I love that Sophie over the weekend just did a enjoy animation of how it looked underwater. So she's made this GIF, and it just looks super cool. And I just love how this came about. Like this is like us sharing something, community commented on something, and then we sort of created something based on that. And then it feels like a nice sort of like, I don't know, like interaction. Like I really love that.
Oh, that sketch. That animated. I didn't realize that was by you. For some reason, I
Yeah.
completely missed that. Okay. Yeah, that looks awesome. Did you hand draw that, or is that like?
On Procreate on iPad.
I didn't. It was too quiet, but I assume yes, you said.
On Procreate.
Just a Procreate.
iPad.
Oh, Procreate. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, and I should mention that when we post up this video, we'll also include links to any of the content that we mentioned as well. So anyone who's watching later won't miss out. Mike, you were talking about the recent discussions.
Yes, very useful. So I was doing some design work on progression monetization. So I threw it out to the community as a couple of questions and got some really nice, interesting answers actually. So very helpful. I appreciate being able to just throw it out and then have some intelligent discussion on design before it devolves down into discussion of what fleet's more powerful than other fleets, which is also cool. But yeah, it's good.
And Sophie, you were
sketch.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on Goldfish's time lapses that they made for the pixel art competition. It was so cool seeing the just the process that went into making them. So thank you for posting those goldfish if you watch this.
Cool.
Something that I saw, which was really cool, I think it was in the fan fan art one or the creative one, but it was the Valkyrie origin story by, I think it was BPF's Pet Chicken. And that was really, really cool. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, so that'll as well be part of the link, but I definitely encourage you to have a little read of that. It's really cool, and yeah, we really appreciate people engaging with the content like this. It's very, very cool. And yeah, is there anything else that anyone wants to cover, or any like urgent questions? Otherwise, we'll do a little outro.
Photom asked me a couple of times about Fog of War mode. I actually can't. I remember the post, but I can't remember what the suggestion was about it. But I think that goes back to the different modes discussion. I think definitely we want more game modes. I think that's more game modes, more ships. I think those are the two big things that people always want. So yes, we hear you. We want to do them, but it's just when do you do them in the process of things.
There was a question about FTX. Just a quick note on that. We're not affected by what's been going on, and it's unfortunate that these things happen. We try our best to shield the game and the community away from some of these things, because we don't really focus on the financial aspect, I suppose, of what we're doing. I think we are focusing on the technology part of things, which is, I think, the decentralized ledger system in terms of ownership of assets. That's what we're focusing on. So we're not affected. And I think just before this happened, I was at a Solana conference, and I think there's still a lot of energy, a lot of interesting things being built on their tech. So yeah, just a quick note on that. We're not worried, we're not impacted. And we'll continue to focus on just how do we make the best use of the technology, and focusing on building out a good game, building the community. And I think the rest is less of a concern for us at the moment.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone who joined us live and everyone who will be watching the recording later. We are committing to make these calls more regular. In fact, that next week we will be doing another community call as kind of like a end of the year, happy holidays call. We will also be announcing like a really, really small thing. It's not going to be like a new ship or like chess mode or anything quite like that. It'll be very, very, very small. But if you're on the call with us next week, we'll launch it then during the call. So it'll be quite exciting for us to all gather around. And yeah, at end of the year, so just cozy up and we'll hang out, and it'll be a nice little send off to what Gangbusters and BattleTabs has become over this past year. And also we can just talk about where we're heading into the new year. And just again, more onto the community calls. We are going to be doing them more frequently in the new year from February. And what we will be doing is a community call a month. And we're still defining like what kind of like time schedule and days, but I think we're all in agreement that at least a community call each month from February next year. So we just want to keep our communication with you through this a bit more consistent, because it's just very fun for all of us to interact with the community. And yeah, I think that's all. So tune in next week for that small but very exciting little thing.
Awesome. Jamie, just want to say thank you very much for doing this. It's definitely way better since you've taken the lead on this one than Brandon and I just stumbling our way through it. So thanks very much for this, Jamie.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully I didn't stumble over
Jamie.
anyone too much.
Yeah.
Oh, see you, everyone.
Yeah. See you next week. Bye.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.